Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we will talk about what Soros and his globalist friends have planned for our happiness and well-being. They consulted with specialists, of course, professionals in economics and psychology. The only thing they forgot to do was to consult with us. They didn't ask us because why would they? We're just sheep to them. What does a sheep know anyway? Who asks where they're being led? We'll go there and then follow whoever we're told to, and from that moment on, no one will ask us anything at all anymore. Nothing at all. The smart, insightful ones who serve the people will make the decisions, and the people, we will stay silent. Silent. Who did I tell? Just like how the people kept silent back then. That's what they thought about us. The filth that the Democrats covered up in 2016 and afterwards continues to pour out in streams. The mainstream press, though, pretends that nothing is happening at all, like something just flew by or something. We don't know what it is. This won't last long, gentlemen. They won't be able to keep it up for very long. By the way, did you know this? I was completely surprised. It turns out that in Durham's report, the famous one, there was a secret part about water, which they forgot to tell us about, and it was written in words that were not what we were told. In the main part of the report, that is, the report had an additional section, but it was a bit contrary to what was in the main part. By the way, I didn't know that. I honestly couldn't even have guessed it.
The Trump administration
declassified all the hidden information in the famous Durham report. It turns out that all the interesting data we were looking for was intentionally classified.
Also, documents related to Hillary Clinton were loaded into FBI destruction bags.
She may have managed to get rid of her emails, but this paper trail of evidence is alive and well.
Not only Durham, but also documents related to the FBI investigation, the investigation of Hillary. I mean, the one that was found in bags in the room where documents are taken to be burned. It was a miracle that these bags were saved. I think that someone reported it, which is known as whistleblowing. But someone in the FBI tried to quietly destroy it.
The FBI seized thousands of documents shortly before they were supposed to be burned.
These documents contain evidence that directly links Hillary Clinton as the head of the Russia-Trump hoax.
What did we know?
But we needed documentary evidence to bring charges, convene a grand jury, and ultimately make an arrest.
Steve Gardner believes there's enough there to open a case, to bring charges, and he even thinks to arrest Hillary and several of her staff. Campaign staff, of course, who came up with and, through the media, implanted into the minds of the American people and the whole world. In fact, about the claim that Trump is Putin's puppet, about Putin's connection with Russia, let's put it that way, more precisely. As it became known, Filari has already called together a group of lawyers for an urgent discussion of possible consequences and a response to these accusations. So, are they going to come up with something? And the investigative journalist I told you about, John Solomon, he's probably the best, or at least one of the best on the American journalism scene, always has the latest and most accurate information. He published then an email from the coordinator of Hillary's election campaign to the main people close to the Clintons. I would even clarify, he's not a coordinator, but Leonard, let me check, I just remembered his last name. He actually works for Soros. He's the second in command at the Soros Foundation. Well, besides that, he coordinated some actions with V and with the election campaign. That's a normal move, right? That's it.
It's irrefutable evidence inside.
Duremski's annex.
If this is confirmed by further investigation.
This means that the team of liberal mega donor George Soros knew about Hillary Clinton's entire plan for the Russiagate hoax 4 days before the FBI started its investigation.
And Obama, Brennan, and Comey knew as well. Let me read this to you. Hillary Rodham Clinton approved Julia's idea that Trump and Russian hackers were interfering in the United States elections.
Now we have the name of the person who came up with it. To distract voters from Hillary's emails with a sensational statement that Trump is working for Putin. Her name is Julia. Well, sometimes she's mentioned as Julie, sometimes as Jewel, but it seems her name is Julia.
This should distract people from her missing emails, especially if it reaches an Olympic level.
The point is to make Russia an internal problem for the United States to say something like a threat to critical infrastructure for the elections, so people feel threatened. Since both the president and the vice president have acknowledged that intelligence will speed up the search for evidence, which unfortunately is still unavailable, however, there seem to be signs of main intelligence directorate infiltration.
They seemed hardly skilled, incompetent, clumsy idiots, as they were called in the SMB.
In the absence of direct evidence, and if they provide information to the media, we hope that they will only do so to present more facts.
So, essentially, Hillary Clinton approved this.
And they knew that by putting this on the air, the mainstream media would immediately pick it up and start spreading it.
Let's remember the consequences of this dirty scheme. The country lived under stress for more than 3 years. Twice impeachment, hundreds of millions of dollars lost, and I mean not just on the process itself. Lost because the country came to a halt. But the hatred started earlier. They fostered hatred of one half of the country toward the other, undermining all the foundations of our democracy. Yes, so you remember well yourself what happened with the approval of Hillary, Obama, and Soros, right? And they were thinking ahead. How do you stop Trump from improving life in America in case he actually gets elected president? Although they didn't believe it, and that's why they actually missed it.
Now, this is good for the post-convention boost, meaning they needed to raise interest after the convention. Later, the FBI will add fuel to the fire. The outcome is far from clear, since Americans are more concerned with their own problems, and Hillary hardly looks convincing in terms of trust. In any case, things are terrible for United States-Russia relations.
The Democrats understood that Hillary had several dark spots. One of them is the people's trust. The people never trusted Hillary. You know how they say, would you buy a used car from this person just on their word that it works fine? So they came up with new tricks, deceptions, and slanders to shove her down our throats, but thank God they couldn't. Who are these people? Where are they now? Are they still working at the same CIA, at the same FBI? If they're in the government, are they for us, for Americans, or are they against us?
They go through them, declassify and publish them. We learn more about who is actually directly involved and implicated in this. We learn more about who might have been in the room and who loudly protested against it, acknowledging how wrong it was. We have whistleblowers who come forward with their own documents about their protests and unwillingness to participate in this. So yes, there are people who still work in the intelligence community and were involved in this as they are identified. This will give us the opportunity to make sure that they and others like them, who are again so willing to weaponize intelligence to undermine the will of the American people, will no longer be able to work in the intelligence community, can no longer work in the intelligence community.
By the way, there was a wave of deleting all sorts of correspondence by those who participated in the conspiracy. In the past, burning a piece of paper made it disappear completely. Now it's not that simple.
Peter Strzok deleted his entire history on X. You can feel that they sense the walls are closing in.
This, in my opinion, is the only way I can understand this situation. Those who are truly innocent wouldn't take such actions. And again, that's why it's so important to declassify this information in order to reveal the truth. Because this is something that, for anyone even a little bit objective, is irrefutable and undeniable and can be used. It is currently being reviewed by the Department of Justice in order to hold those involved accountable. By the Department of Justice to bring about accountability for.
All right, so that's what we all want.
We want the Department of Justice to take this seriously. We want them to be involved. Now, looking back, we can see more clearly how Hillary Clinton and others were constantly creating a narrative they knew the mainstream media would pick up and spread on their behalf. Here's an example.
The traces were left not only in their correspondence, but also on social media and on television, where they appeared, eagerly jumping on television, delivering angry denunciations of Trump for crimes they themselves invented and accused him of.
What if I told you that? Sensational declassified intelligence documents have just been released, proving that George Soros and the Hillary Clinton team not only spread the myth of Russian collusion, but created it from scratch. They coordinated through government agencies and then watched as it almost destroyed the sitting president of the United States.
This is Dr. Stiff Turl. He, like the other commentators, was stunned to find out that the Durham report actually has a secret part that they forgot to tell us about. And what we've been told is both simple and horrifying at the same time. Yes, George Soros paid for the attempt to overthrow the legitimately elected president of the United States, and Obama and Hillary, using his billions, basically turned the United States security agencies into their own attack dogs. And they set them against us, against you and me. Remember how the Department of Jurisprudence and Justice wrote in their directive that parents are local terrorists because they don't want their children to be taught certain things? That there can be not only male and female genders, but also 24 or 37 other kinds. By the way, it's interesting that spies from Russia, China, and several other countries knew in advance that Hillary Clinton was preparing such a worldwide deception about the connection between Trump and the Kremlin.
Russian intelligence intercepted emails between a man named Leonard Bernardo and the chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. In these messages, they openly discussed their plan to link President Trump to Russia in order to distract from the Hillary Clinton email server scandal.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee at that time. Well, she got caught up in corruption, messed up politically, and left. But at that time, she was at the height of her fame. Leonard Bernard. See, I said I would remember the last name Bernard. Leonard Bernard, vice president of the Soros Foundation, the second in command in the Empire of Evil. And they weren't discussing political attacks, well, political ones, that's normal, so to speak. But how to use the United States government apparatus to fight against, and then remove, the president whom you and I elected. The majority of the population. So they're supposedly for democracy, right? They're afraid that our democracy will be destroyed, but how do they prevent that? By destroying democracy themselves. So even under Trump, the intelligence officers hired by Barack Obama over 8 years were not actually protecting America, and it's being used by globalists as a tool in their fight against America.
The senior vice president. He is the senior vice president of the Open Society Foundation of George Soros. We have just found irrefutable evidence that shows that the Soros Open Society Foundations are at the very center of the deception about the Russian collusion, deliberately aimed at overthrowing the United States elections by sabotaging the presidency.
Now think about that for a moment.
They weren't just planning attacks on the company. They were coordinating with federal law enforcement agencies to amplify their fabricated narrative about fraud.
The senior vice president of the Soros organization was an integral part of the federal law enforcement group that deliberately sought to overthrow the legitimately elected president. But here's where it gets even more sinister. The FBI knew that all of this was a lie.
They knew?
That it was all fake. CIA Director John Brennan personally informed President Obama about Hillary Clinton's plan to link Trump to Russia. They had reliable information that it was completely fabricated disinformation. It was a deception. It was a forgery.
But what did they do? What did Obama do? What did Obama and his inner circle do? They accepted it.
The document published by Tulsi Gabbard clearly shows that officials in the Obama administration were deliberately increasing, creating, and fabricating more intelligence. They were laying the groundwork for an unprecedented political attack on President Trump, which was nothing less than a years-long coup reaching all the way to the top with Obama, and using the intelligence community as a weapon for partisan purposes.
We've already discussed this. I just can't help but repeat it. That's how shocked I am. Do you know why it's so shocking? Liars, deceivers, and vile creatures have always existed, everywhere, always, at all times, at all times. But to believe that so many Americans who served in the military, in intelligence, in the police, in our government, in state institutions, so easily began to embrace ideals that are not those of our civilization. Our constitutions have turned into analogs of the KGB, People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs Stasi, Romanian Securitat, whatever they were called around the world. And this is what's so shocking. Honestly, I have to say that, unlike the Cheka and the People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs, who, despite the pressure, despite the threats, I'll tell you about this sometime. There are already quite a few people who have testified, who have told what was done to them when they refused. But now, nevertheless, they refuse to take part in this deception. And now, one by one, they are bringing evidence and materials about Mbante and Kashupatelu.
So the obvious question is, why is George Soros doing this?
What drives billionaires who consistently, ruthlessly, and systematically seek to undermine American democracy?
Well, ultimately, in his own kind of twisted logic, Soros truly believes that he is saving democracy by undermining it.
In 1993, Soros published an extensive article about the New World Order. The idea is simple. The elite decides, and the non-elite obediently follows. In the article, Soros said that nationalism gets in the way. Well, naturally, nationalism means we're for our own nation. They wanted internationalism, meaning we're all together, we're all the same, and someone else decides for us. So nationalism gets in the way of building a just world. In 2000, he said this himself in Ivan Bayo's lecture, which I saw personally. What it means is the last obstacle standing in the way of a globalist paradise. Well, he didn't say it exactly like that. That's just me making it up. Naturally, yes, but he calls it a just society, an open one, and the United States of America is that obstacle. And it's clear why. We don't want to be ruled by an elite. We just don't want that. All those fools want it, but we don't. That's not why we moved to a continent far away from them and called ourselves the New World. You live how you want, dear friends, and we will live our way. Well, let's say in our own way. Good or bad, it's none of your business in our own way. That's why Soros and his buddies are in Davos and in Washington. They decided to do away with elections altogether and decide for themselves who will be in charge of what. So who will lead us to the wonderful lands they've invented? They are the future. This is a complete departure from the Declaration of Independence, which says that everyone decides what happiness is, their own happiness, and has the right to pursue it, as it is written there. If you remember, ladies and gentlemen, by any means he sees fit, as long as he doesn't prevent others from pursuing that same happiness, their own happiness. So Soros and all those who helped Soros, they easily forgot all our ideals, and many of them, military and others, raised their hands and swore to something. They immediately, right away, so to speak, abandoned following the basic principles that were laid at the foundation of our country.
Now we see, without a shadow of a doubt, coordination between the operators of the Soros Foundation, officials from the Clinton Company, the leadership of the Democratic National Committee, and employees of the FBI and CIA.
And of course, the complicit traditional media.
They all create a self-sustaining narrative loop.
Plant a fake story, get government agencies to, quote,
investigate it,
leak selective information to friendly media, then point to the media coverage as proof that the story is real. To sabotage a presidency that George Soros considers a threat to the planet.
That's what we've been witnessing for the past 8 years.
And now all of this is coming out.
this woman should be in prison. Literally, Hillary Clinton should be behind bars, as well as the people who work for her and did this. This is so blatantly corrupt. She wanted to distract from the email scandal. She came up with a plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian agent to divert attention from her own scandal. She made up the scandal that Trump is a Russian asset. And they were counting on the intelligence agencies to work with her to support this lie. And it seems they were only too happy
To help.
This is
The same thing that hit me. Everyone whom Hillary and Obama turned to was happy to help destroy the hollow United States of America.
they hacked a couple of high-ranking operatives who were connected to T. Clinton's company or were kind of friendly with her. And they exposed this conspiracy. The Russians did it. The Russians exposed her plot to try to portray Trump as a Russian agent. And the Dutch were spying on the Russians. The Dutch got their hands on Russian intelligence information that the Russians had stolen as a result of hacking people from Clinton's team. And then the Dutch told us, the Dutch said, hey, this is bad. They came to the Americans, whom they are friends with, and said, you should read this. Hillary Clinton is about to do something bad. And instead of, Jim Comey saying, oh, when he saw the Steele dossier saying, well, this is obviously nonsense. Who are they? Who hired them? Oh, Hillary Clinton. Oh, okay, I know exactly what's going on here. This is nonsense, guys. This is a Hillary Clinton trick. Instead of doing that, not only did they not reject the nonsense coming from Hillary's agents, but they doubled down. They opened an investigation against Trump and his company, started arresting people, and used information created by Hillary, like the Steele dossier and other things. You heard how Iron Matty explained that she had the CrowdStrike group, which suggested that it was the Russians who hacked the Democratic National Committee. They accepted it completely and fully, and so on. So that's it. It's crazy what she did. I don't even have words. She's still walking around acting like she won, but he stole that election. And those were the ones in 2016, and that they were illegitimate. She's not delusional. She's a liar to the core.
Of her bones.
To her core. Newly declassified documents found in a burn bag
by the FBI shed
more light on the investigation into Trump's collusion with Russia. The documents are part of Special Prosecutor John Durham's investigation. Remember, in 2023, he called the Russia investigation, quote, seriously flawed, partly because the FBI, quote, intentionally ignored information that did not support the collusion narrative. Shannon Brim is joined by Sir David Spant, who is reporting live from Washington. Hello, David.
Hello, Martha. Glad to be with you.
Part of the application was discovered in the burn bag, but copies were reported. The originals were stored in the Department of Justice systems.
But Special Counsel John Durham's investigation into the origins of the Trump-Russia narrative began in 2019 and ended 4 years later with a 300-page document.
And with these words, our findings were sobering. I can tell you that having spent more than 40 years as a federal prosecutor, they were especially sobering for me.
Today, we see the missing 29 pages that were classified until yesterday. The recently released document provides additional examples of how Hillary Clinton's campaign tried to discredit Trump's campaign.
The appendix contains emails supposedly written by Leonard, who is connected to George Soros's Open Society Foundation.
The appendix mentions a Clinton campaign advisor called Juliana, Julia, and Julie. What is the meaning of this?
Hillary Clinton approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers interfering in the United States elections.
This is supposed to distract people from her own missing emails, especially if it reaches an Olympic level.
All right, let's pause here for a second and understand what's going on.
So we know without a doubt that Hillary Clinton had classified information in her personal emails, in her personal home, on her personal computer.
It's indisputable that she only received a light punishment, while most people would have been imprisoned for the same offense.
And if you were in the military, you would probably be demoted, you would be stripped of your rank, and in some cases, you would definitely be court-martialed.
All right, we all know that already. And the only way they were able to distract from this, although I don't think they really succeeded, by the way, was to come up with this whole Russian hoax.
That's basically what's being said now. And they provide a copy of the email that shows this.
To be clear, these emails that Durham received were once hacked by Russian intelligence.
The appendix goes on to explain that the BR was fully warned about the possibility that at least some of the information obtained about Trump's company could have originated from the Clinton campaign or from Russian sources.
But they dismissed this information as not credible without taking any investigative actions to either confirm or refute the allegation.
The report criticizes President Obama's national security team, including CIA Director John Brennan, Attorney General Pam Bondi, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and FBI Director Kash Patel.
Those behind the declassification of this application allowed us to read it. We reached out for comments from those mentioned in the report, but received none.
From those people
mentioned in the report.
We were finally allowed to look at the documents ourselves and at the classified part of Durham's report. Classified, ladies and gentlemen, from us. It was never classified from the elite. So what did we find out from all of this? First, the globalists, including Hillary and her husband. Do you remember him? Yeah, that rapist is named Baraka and, well, others too. They tried to create a situation in the United States where voting is purely formal, but in reality, power is appointed by certain so-called servants of the people. Like in China, what Putin tried to do in Russia, like how it happens in China today. Up there on their Olympus, their democratic Olympus, they have freedom of choice, while we have a yoke. The second one was in 2016. They unexpectedly lost, but did everything they could to make sure the president we elected wouldn't succeed, to bring America back to the path of the free market. The free market implies freedom, and freedom implies the freedom of choice. Soros and a few other globalists financed the 4-year struggle against Trump, and the Democratic Party, through law enforcement and the media, prevented America from starting to build its life the way we want ourselves. They also stole billions from us simply from the budget to fight against us. That is, they stole our money to fight us. Third, in 2020, they managed to stage a coup, and those who couldn't get into power in 2016 returned to power. Fourth, the same forces, security officials, the press, politicians, and bureaucrats tried to stop Trump through the courts, slander, or even physical elimination. But they failed, and Trump came to power already having a team of allies and experience fighting the deep state. Fifth, the Democrats tried to destroy all the evidence, but they couldn't. Some things remain, and now the main actors, let's call them what they are, traitors and enemies of America, are urgently erasing and burning everything they can, while at the same time gathering legal protection. Of course, we don't know where we'll end up. Ladies and gentlemen, the genius of Soros has always led the Democrats to victory in the past. But as they say, there's no trick against Loom unless you have another Loom, and Soros ran into another genius, Trump. Who will be judged, Hillary Bryna or the guy from the Soros Foundation? This Leonardo, yes. Several employees from Hillary's election campaign, several FBI staff close to Comey. I'm sure there are a bunch of other people whose names we don't know or have never heard of. They will also prosecute a close circle around Biden, but not for this case, for selling pardons. Who he's covering for, we don't know. Nobody knows. Yes, that's actually not the most important thing. So what is the most important thing? There's just over a year left until the 1926 elections. To show America the kind of filth they tried to drag our country into. They have the press, lying every day, already starting to pay millions in fines for their lies. Now they're being tried, and of course they have files on many in the Senate and Congress. But the young people that Trump brought this time don't seem to be under the Democrats' control. Now the Democrats no longer have law enforcement on their side. And the amount of information, especially from congressional hearings and from the courts, will reach the public. And when Americans are horrified, the Democrats won't get additional seats in Congress and the Senate. Always after a new president wins, 2 years later in the midterm elections, those very elections 2 years later bring victory to the party that lost the presidential election. That is, sometimes they would win 5 seats and sometimes even 30. I mean, not the party that, so to speak, lost the presidency. And the Democrats feel that this time they're not gaining. Donors are refusing to give money. So the guilty ones are trying to shift the blame onto others. For example, take a look at the hysteria of Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey, who was recently considered a presidential candidate. Just look at that. But first, let's look at the attack on him. See how they go after each other over there.
I enjoy participating in discussions and sharing my perspective. And I'll note that Senator Booker objected to my police reauthorization bill. The COBBS funding, the Cobbs-Clinton funding, was in place long before Donald Trump took office. So it's not just about that. This is a long-standing dispute over this type of funding.
Party members, just so you know, almost never attack each other at general meetings. In their internal ones, yes, and especially not in front of the press, by the way. So it's open. Not only is it a general meeting, but it's also open. And now Booker, who knows they're attacking him just to make him the scapegoat later. The state is absolutely hysterical, and because of that, there are tremors.
And what do those very people say here, the ones chosen to protect the Constitution of the United States?
Oh, well, today let's look the other way and allocate resources that won't go to Connecticut, won't go to Illinois, won't go to New York, but will go to the states he likes.
This is complicity with an authoritarian leader who tramples on our Constitution.
It's time for Democrats to show strength. It's time for us to fight. It's time for us to draw the line.
And when it comes to the safety of my state, which is being denied these grants, that's why I'm standing here.
Don't question my honesty. Don't question my motives.
I stand for Jersey, I stand for my police officers, I stand for the Constitution, and I stand for what's right.
If she's shouting, it means she knows exactly whose meat she ate. It means she understands that they're digging under her. It means she knows why. Boxing is on their side. Let them yell, scream, shout, cry, and blow their noses. And it would be good if they did it in prison, in their cells, behind bars. I don't remember Donald Trump throwing tantrums when he was really in trouble. Well, that's all. Events are moving quickly, and it seems to me that finally they're heading in the right direction. Until we meet again.